Hi, my name is Lakota Denton. I am a trial lawyer in Asheville, North Carolina. I handle personal injury claims. I want to talk to you about car accident claims in particular, and specifically how to investigate your car crash to make sure that you have all the information you need when you try to settle your claim with an insurance company. So there's a number of things that you absolutely need to get at the scene of a crash to properly investigate it, things that you cannot get days or weeks or months later. I want to go through these things with you so that you know what to expect and what to get if you're involved in a car crash. Immediately after the crash, you're probably going to have some injuries and you're going to be shaken up, and you may not have your wits about you. So you need either yourself or a friend or a lawyer or somebody to help you gather this information. It's okay to call a lawyer immediately after a crash. It's okay to call a friend or a family member to come to the scene of the crash and help you investigate. Here's what you need. One, you need photographs of all the vehicles involved and the area of the roadway where the crash happened. Obviously, you can use your phone to get these photographs, and it's very easy. But there's information in those photographs that you will not have weeks or months later. The angle of the impact of the vehicles, the light sequence in the intersection if there's an intersection involved, the amount of damage to the vehicles, whether or not there are any skid marks on the roadway, whether or not there's other people around who could become witnesses, and if you have a photograph you might be able to identify them, license plate numbers of other cars that might have witnessed the crash. So first, get photographs of anything and everything possible, including your own injuries if you have any injuries. I've had many cases where people have a bruised knee that is swollen or bleeding immediately after a crash, and then months down the road an insurance company says, oh, they weren't hurt, but the photograph can prove it. So that's first, is photographed. Second, witness statements. Sometimes there's a dispute as to who is at fault in the crash. The best way to prove who is at fault is to talk to witnesses who witnessed the crash. Now, these are folks who may walk up to you or walk up to the police officer immediately after the crash. They would have seen the crash and they'll check to see if everyone's okay. Once the ambulance gets there, these witnesses take off and you never see them again. You don't know who they are. You don't know how to get a hold of them. So if anyone saw the crash, get their name and phone number. If there's a car parked over on the side of the road and there's somebody in it, get a photograph of the license plate so you can track them down later on. If somebody is happy to talk to you and they saw the crash, tell them you'll call them later or have your attorney call them later and get a statement signed by them of what they saw. Remember that eyewitnesses' memory of what they saw gets worse and worse and worse every minute and every hour after a crash. So get any witnesses' statements that you can after the crash. So the first was get photographs. The second is get eyewitness statements. Okay? The third thing to investigate is make sure you get the police to come and show up and do their own investigation. You can call the police, somebody else can call the police, but they need to arrive at the scene of the crash because they're going to take down very specific information about what happened. They'll get the license plate numbers, they'll get the names of insurance companies, they will record if there's any skid marks, they may take their own photographs, they may list the names and statements of any witnesses that saw the crash. They'll do a lot of that work for you, but you got to make sure the police show up, and then after they show up, you need to get a copy of their crash report. They fill out a form that talks about everything that they investigated, and they put it onto a crash report that is a public document you can request. Within a couple days it'll be done. So photographs, witness statements, and police report. The next thing to investigate, and this isn't really an investigation into the crash, but this is to preserve evidence that you may need later on, and that is make sure you go and get checked out by a doctor immediately. And if you have serious injuries, or even if you have minor injuries that are visible, get photographs of those injuries. So this might involve going to the emergency room, it might involve going to a primary care doctor, but go somewhere immediately, or in urgent care. Now, a lot of people tell me, this happens all the time, people tell me, well, it wasn't life-threatening, I didn't think I was hurt too bad, And so I went home to rest, and I thought I might go to see the doctor the next day. If you're unsure of whether you're hurt, it's really helpful to just at least go to urgent care or go to the emergency room. And it's not always because you think urgent care is going to help you feel better, but it's because then you have a document, a piece of paper that says you did have a little bit of pain here, you did have a headache, you did have some bumps and bruises, and we can document what happened so that if later on those injuries become more serious, you have a document the same day of the crash that says, well, you were starting to feel something immediately afterwards. I'll give you a quick example. If you bump your knee or twist your knee in a car crash, it's probably not going to be hurting too badly within an hour after the crash. You'll notice it. But if you go and get it checked out and you say, yeah, my knee feels a little funny, I think it's going to be okay, but I want to get it checked out. They'll do an x-ray. Well, days or weeks later, I've had this happen a dozen times. That bumped knee or twisted knee turns out to be a torn meniscus, which needs surgery. And torn meniscus doesn't always hurt too badly right after a crash. That's why it's important to get it checked out right away, is to show that you did have some knee complaints, and so that later on, if it becomes something that needs surgery, you don't have an insurance company saying, well, they never got checked out after the crash, so they must not have been hurt. So again, photographs, witness statements, investigate your own injuries and take photographs of your injuries, and talk to the police officer and get the police officer's report on what happened in the crash. If you have any other questions on how to handle this, or whether or not you have a crash that could be a claim for personal injuries, feel free to call my office. I talk to people for free all the time and give this kind of advice and information. I'll let you know if you need an attorney on your case, and it doesn't hurt to call because it doesn't cost a thing. Thanks.